Hey guys, how's it going? I'm back with another video. So in this video here, what I want to do is play a game out of a World Championship game out on my official World Championship set with the Premium World Championship board. Just to give you a little, context on the game that I chose. This is the World Championship between Botvinnik and Smyslov in 1954. So this was their very first encounter. This was actually the 19th official World Championship. It had a total of 24 games. 14 of those games were decisive. And this game here is the this game here is the 14th game of that match. Now, this game here is, I was looking through the database and I found this game here, and I was just awestruck by this game here and just how well this game turned out. Of course, most people already know Smyslov won this game in spectacular fashion. So, well, not necessarily spectacular fashion per se, but it was just a very overwhelming position he had. That was, in the end, as you'll see, somewhat reminiscent of Bobby Fischer's game of the century game, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. So that said, let's go ahead and just dive right in. Botvinnik starts with d4, which of course this is my favorite first move. So this game was of high interest to me. Knight f6, c4, g6, g3, bishop b7, bishop to g2. This is everything I've seen. I play quite often. If you watch my channel, you see me play this right here. So this game is quite good interest here. And not only that, this way that this game is played, I'm sure this is well known by very high level grandmasters, and people won't necessarily play this way as they'll play in this game. But if you know this line, it might yield you some points. All right, so now we have our castles by black. Knight to c3. Now, again, knight to c3 I think is interesting because whenever you go knight to f3, let's just back this up. Now, if you go knight to f3 first, he has this option to kind of hop his knight in here. He maybe not going to do it on this move, but again, that is some point that can happen. So, but instead, by hopping this out first, you are hitting the e4 square twice, and that prevents that. So with that said, we're going to d6, knight f3 now, because again the e4 square is covered. That's at least my perspective. I did do mainly most of my analysis here on my own, but I did do a little bit with the computer, and I'll get to that when I get to that point in the game. I'll let you know. Knight to f3, knight on b to d7. Okay, castles, everything pretty standard so far. Nothing really funny here. e5. This is a typical King's Indian thing where you kind of want to open this file up, and most people don't take with take e5 with d4, because it seemingly gives black some sort of advantage with that open file. All right, so now he goes e4. Okay, c6, kind of somewhat of a reverse Guccio piano a little bit here. Although it's a King's Indian, I'm just talking about this particular pawn structure here. All right, so bishop to e3. One of the things I've always worried about is whenever you come here with your bishop, knight coming to g4 and hitting that bishop. So let's see how this handles here. And by reading the notes here, Garry Kasparov annotated this game in ChessBase database. So he said at this position here, it's important to note that Botvinnik's last move was a novelty, at least for official opening theory. However, in deep preparation of unusual openings, Smyslov predicted such a turn of events With the counter, he eventually put white ideas out of business. Today, the best options are H3 or B3. I like to play B3 in this position myself. So with that said, those are the words of Garry Kasparov. All right, so let's go ahead and move on here. I'm referring to my notes here because all right, now, see, this is knight to G4. See, this is the move that I was kind of thinking about. So what he does now, this is how he handles it. He goes bishop to G5. And now, queen to B6 is considered a novelty in this game. And I'm assuming it was a novelty probably at that time. Now, this is where I did a little bit of computer analysis. The computer gives this position the favor to white about 1 1/4 pawn. That's pretty significant, but in a human standpoint, if you're not winning, say, more than 3 pawns, it's still a lot of game left. And again, this is not, the computer's probably evaluating that because, white's pieces are just more active, better placed. His rooks are going to be connected and soon, and things like that. But however, he does have a threat, though. He does have a threat of taking on D4. So let's just see what happens here. All right, so now we go H3 to kick the knight. First surprise of the game is pawn takes D4. All right. Knight to A4. Now you see why this game is somewhat, although reminiscent of Bobby Fischer's game of the century, in this position a little bit, is that knight went to A4 by Bobby, and that sort of thing is somewhat of the same setup. White was not castled in the game of the century, but still, and later on we'll see some more kind of, I want to say, reminiscent type positions. Okay, so he goes queen to A6, hitting the knight and hitting the pawn, by the way. H takes G4. Here, Kasparov says white is clearly better. Now, this was a surprise move to me. I didn't think about this, but still, he played B5. This kind of, this way of playing, and from a human, again, I'm always looking at stuff from a human standpoint. Of course, people are going to say, oh, this is losing, this is what the computer says. But when you're playing stuff like this as a human, it's really hard to come up with something. It's easy to make a mistake because there's so many things to do. And that's kind of the style of play I like to play. When I'm playing in tournament games, I like to present my opponent with so many options that he eventually might not just outplay himself. It doesn't always work, but that's more or less along the lines of my style. All right. Queen A6, B5. It says, Kasparov says, now the temporary sacrifice piece will be returned, after which the multiple pawn weaknesses on both sides make the position dynamically equal. So, B5, knight takes D4, B takes A4. And here, Stockfish, again, I've done a little, again, this is just, in certain positions, I just want to see what the computer thought based on the analysis here that Garry Kasparov is giving. So Stockfish rate, this is about 0.29 pawns. So knight takes C6. Now watch this. Now this is where the game gets interested at. This is where the game gets real interesting. There's going to be a piece sacrifice here. Not a piece sacrifice, an exchange sacrifice. He takes here. Queen takes knight. E5. Queen takes C4. All right. Bishop takes A8. I mean, all this stuff here, that's why I'm kind of going through these kind of moves kind of fast, because you wouldn't do any of that if you wasn't going to do that there. Now, knight takes E5. Now, let's take a look at what we got here after this move here. All right, white is down the exchange, quote unquote down the exchange. However, black's bishops are pretty dangerous. I mean, well, black does have a passed pawn right now. If white was to take the pawn, well, I mean, then e4 is hanging. This bishop is slicing. This bishop here is also hitting g4. This bishop can even come out and develop on a6. It's just when you got a position like this, it's really hard to deal with when you got an open board and some centralized pieces of your opponents and they have two bishops, even if you are upstairs change. That doesn't always happen, but in this case, this is just one of those cases. And then Kasparov says, in return for the exchange, black has excellent compensation. The white pawns are vulnerable, his pieces are disoriented, and his king position are weakened. And again, I definitely would rather play black in this case here, because you have so many moves as black, that like so many ways to improve your position. White has in my view, has to somewhat consolidate first and then improve, because again, he has three pieces that's unprotected. For example, pawn and both his bishops. The bishop's diagonals really can't be easily contested. G4 is hanging at the moment. The king is a bit weak. So, yeah. And you can't force a trade of rooks just yet. So, I would say I'd much rather play black here any day of the week. All right, let's turn the page in the notes. Now, rook to c1. All right, things about to heat up here in a second. All right. Now, this is where I think most humans would have snagged a pawn, like G4 is hanging. Like trading with the queen is okay. Taking with the bishop is okay. Or either taking on A7 is okay with the queen. There's so many things you can do here as white. So this is another reason why, like I said, if I was playing with white, again, you don't have to go to those squares. I mean, you get B4 is an option, B5 is an option, even A6 is an option. So white has so many ways to improve his position, and not only to improve his position, but he has so many ways to kind of hold his posture in this type of position. But white's posture is a little shaky. This is my point of view here, and he has to somewhat stabilize his posture before he can even maintain it. I think black's posture here is really good. I love black in this position here. I love these types of positions. Rook to c1. All right, so b4. He goes queen to b4. All right, now a3. Kicking the queen a little bit here. All right, let's go 19 here. Now queen takes b2. So this is not really risky, but if you think about it, well, when is the best time to snag a pawn? Well, you snag a pawn when you can snag that pawn and also make some threats. I mean, he has a threat here on this pawn now. He still has this threat here. I mean, the bishop can come. It's so many things here. Again, black has that can go down here. Queen takes a4. And at this point, Stockfish evaluate this as pretty much dead equal, negative 0.05. Now, bishop to b7. Now, this is a trap. This is a trap. This is a trap. Bishop to b7. And Botvinnik fell into this trap. This is a very beautiful trap here. Again, it's not necessarily that it's some trap you can just set in an opening or anything like that, but you got to watch for stuff like this, because that king is extraordinarily weak. And, well, if you just trade the bishops, well, these white squares are going to be so weak. The knight can hop right here with check. If you end up trading that bishop. And, in fact, the bishop is threatened being taken by now by the rook or the bishop, by the black bishop. All right, so rook to b1, here's a trap. Because it looks like, oh, white is about to win a piece. But however, this here is this here's the point where he goes wrong. This is negative 3.79 in the favor of black. Now, with that said, you still have to play this position to win it. I mean, of course. Now, take a look at this. Now, take a look at how this goes down. Now, don't forget these bishops, just how strong they are. Knight to f3 check first, because now he can check here because the bishop is being blocked out by the black bishop. Take a look. This is amazing. I love it. King to h1. Now, bishop takes a8, leaving the queen in pre by the rook. There's no other thing here really better to do than rook takes queen. Now, knight, don't forget, knight takes g5, discovered, check. King to h2. I mean, he could have went f3 here according to these notes, but it really wouldn't have made a difference because you'll see why here in a second. I mean, the attack that black has is just way too strong. Knight to f3 check back. King to h3. Now bishop takes b2. Now take a look at this. This position is absolutely insanely amazing. Those bishops, once black kind of, because you got to think about it. This is the way I looked at this position when I was looking through the game before I even done computer analysis. Once black get a pawn here, get his knight here, and get a bishop somewhere in here, black can just step his king up, move his rook out, and there's no way you really can even check the black king. And this rook is always going to be on defense because you have to kind of stay on the back right here. Because just say some kind of way, if this rook was to get down here some kind of way with these bishops, you just couldn't bear it. You just couldn't bear it. I mean, it'd just be way too much pressure as it is. I mean, this is too much now. So let's just see how the game goes. And let me see what, I'm just trying to see what strong pair of bishops. Kasparov says, a strong pair of bishops, black has got quite enough in return for one queen. And also, this is another way this take resembles the Bobby Fischer's game of the centuries. Because remember, Bobby Fischer had two bishops, the knight and a rook, versus white's rook and queen in the game of the century. So how cool is that? I thought it was very cool. All right. So now queen takes a7. Well, the best thing to do, I guess, in a case like this, just gobble up some pawns and hope that you can get some counterplay with your passed pawn. But that passed pawn is so far away. 5 squares away from being a threat. All right. Bishop to e4. So bishop to e4 would be here. See how these white squares are kind of locked, so he can't even push this pawn. So now when he gets his bishop back to e5, step the king up, that's what's going to happen in the game. It's just the rook is then relieved of his defensive duty, and the game is just it just gets more and more overwhelming against white here. Okay, he goes a4. Oh, really the only thing here to do. King to g7. Rook to d1. Bishop to e5. Now again, this is the dream position I was talking about right here. I mean, like, this bishop and this rook is controlling that square. There's checks galore somehow with the knight. The rook is about to come out and come down to the 7th rank. This is going to be weak. It's a very beautiful game. When I saw this game for the first time, I was really awestruck by it. d1, bishop e5, queen to e7. Seems threatening, but not threatening at all. And let's see here, rook to c8. Rook to c8. Now, again, activating that rook. And Kasparov noticed that this rook is preparing to deliver the mortal blow. a5. Nothing else to do. Rook to c2. King to g2. King to g2. Okay, knight to d4. Check. King to f1. Bishop to f3 here. I mean, this is just so overwhelming. Like there's just like literally like nothing you can do here. And rook to b1. Let's see what we got here. And now the finishing blow to the game is knight to c6, and white resigns, because so many things can happen here. First of all, he's going to lose this pawn here. That's the number one thing. Second of all, there's options like bringing the bishop to d4, threatening this square here. It's just one of those positions that is so overwhelming. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. The king cannot be touched at all. Can't even be checked. Even knight to d4 again is is threatening. Right now, the queen has to pick a good square, and the butter picked the right square, because the attack is going to be that much stronger. So anyway, again, I would always love to play positions like this here as black. I mean, this is just simply amazing, because again, even if you trade the rooks, you wouldn't want to trade the rook here as black, because I'm pretty sure that you may not win the game. You might could draw the game at that point. I'm just a guess of mine, but yeah, I mean, this is just so overwhelming that again, I really was awestruck by this game, and I hope to see more games played this beautiful, not just in a world championship, but in chess in general. So that said, the last thing I'll say about this position is that the weighted error for this position, I ran it through our chess base. The weighted error for white is 0.86. And the weighted error for black is 0.07. Pretty much a flawless game by black. That said, I hope you guys enjoyed seeing the board, and not only seeing that, but seeing this beautiful game, and more like this to come. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.